And this is just another way that I've seen men come out and go, these effing feminists, this is just another, and spewing all of their trauma onto the internet. And then women going, okay, this is why we hate men. And
welcome to Elevated Life, Real Wellness and Transformation Podcast, where we walk alongside the internally driven individual as they transform their life through wellness, movement, mindset, and personal responsibility. If that's you, you're in the right place. Let's jump in.
Hello, everybody. We are doing a special bathrobe version of the podcast. Little behind the scenes. This used to be how we did most of our podcasts, and then we decided to go on YouTube and thought, we should maybe shower and put shirts on, but not for this one.
no,
We got to just get into it.
we do. I think that, I didn't want to take the time to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't care. I don't care that y'all are seeing me in my bathrobe. This is like
Real life shit here.
Yeah, that's right. So what are we talking
Yeah,
about
what
today?
are
Because this is a doozy, and it's Clint and I might potentially strangle each other over. So, or maybe not. I mean, I think we've worked out some of our kinks pre-record.
I
which
hope
I
not,
think,
because I would like to get into it.
yeah. Oh, you want to fight?
Yeah, but I'm not going to strangle you.
Oh, well, we all know that I might.
All right, so you want to set the stage?
Yeah, today we are talking about, and I saw this circulating on social media like a couple of days ago, and it just kind of piqued my curiosity. And as I was kind of metabolizing it, I thought, where is this coming from? Where is this story coming from? And is this actually fucking real? Because if it is, we have an issue. And if it isn't, we have an issue. So we're talking about the 62 million men that allegedly were in a rape academy. What'd you say this morning? They have a master's degree in sleep rape, right? Like, let's talk about that. What is it? You drug your partner, your wife is what was being said. And then you rape her, basically. And I had so many people that I really respect in the enlightened spiritual community coming out, men and women, just saying how awful this was and, how men suck. And I thought, and I mentioned it to Clint yesterday, and I was like, I really want to dig into this because, well, for what I said before, if this is, real, this is okay. Like,
horrifying.
I'm definitely going to my planet of origin. I'm not staying on Earth anymore. And if not, I'm definitely going to my planet of origin. I'm not staying here because that's a really fucked up thing to put out there that isn't true. And turns out in my research this morning, the numbers are skewed. Yeah. So what do you want to say for an opener? Do you have anything to say?
Well, I mean, I think it's just echoing kind of what we already said. When you told me that yesterday, I was like, there's no way that's accurate, because that would blow my mind. That 62, because that would mean 62 million guys are actively participating, not even
certified.
just right.
They got a certification.
They completed the course.
Yeah.
Which means there's got to be so many more that are dabbling,
right?
That haven't completed. Or they're just auditing it, so they're just getting some of the information, but not going through everything, and which ultimately means that's like everybody.
Yeah, like what's the math?
So just doing some quick math, and granted, this is claiming worldwide.
Yeah.
So the numbers aren't quite accurate, but because we were talking about, it's hard for us to comprehend what 62 million people would even be.
Yeah. I wonder if they hang their certifications on the wall. I'm not trying to make this light, but you guys need to listen to this because there's a story.
So basically, if you just put that down into the population of the United States, and there's some controversy, but for easy math, we're saying, let's say there's 360 million people in the United States, roughly that. Roughly half are men, roughly half are women. So we're talking about 180 million men. And this runs the gamut from born 1 second ago to just celebrated their 105th birthday. We're talking everything. So even at that number, that means 1 in 3 males in the United States, that gives you about 60 million. So 1 in 3 dudes of every age range. And then if you bring it down to, I don't think people are claiming like 7-year-olds are doing this. It was targeted specifically at married men, but it could be absolutely be applicable to any guy, because it's still the same thing. But, when you bring that down, that ends up being of, the age range that this would be happening. If you take off the 105-year-old and the 2-year-old, we're talking almost every adult male in the United States would be about 60 million, roughly.
And this is worldwide again. So
right.
obviously.
But just to get to comprehend what that number is, that's astronomically high.
Yeah.
Like, unsustainably,
like massive issue.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this. So there is a site called Motherless that hosts porn videos of people being murdered, pirated movies, millions of videos of immoral things. The site in total got 62 million page views in the month of December. There's a category of porn on the site called sleep, which is it has like 20,000 videos of men raping unconscious women. On that site, there was 1,000 men in this specific Telegram chat called ZZZ, where members shared this information. The group contained 1,000 men. So this is a CNN report that was misstated that 62 million men graduated from rape school, when really, and I'm not trying to, what do I want to say? Minimize this, that 1,000 men were involved in this specific chat room.
Because even that is horrific.
Totally.
One dude being involved is not okay.
But totally different
than
what is being spewed across social media, that 62 million men got their cert in this rape.
In raping their wives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just started talking about how, we started talking about a lot of things with this, because when I first saw it, we talk about all the time how your triggers are your trauma points that you need to dig within. So when I first saw it, I was like, fucking dudes. I just, and I had to, think about it and then go, okay, is this true? I should probably do more research, because turns out everything that you see on social media is not true, right? But I had some, people that I really respect, other things that they say about divine masculine and feminine, coming out and spewing this number. And what I've kind of deduced is that any way the powers that be can divide the population, whether it's with politics, your gender, your skin color, they do a really good job. And this is just another way that I've seen men come out and go, these effing feminists, this is just another rah, 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 and spewing all of their trauma onto the internet. And then women going, okay, this is why we hate men. And I just feel like it was perfectly timed because women right now are already just bewildered with what has happened with the Epstein files. Now, there were scandalous women involved in those files as well. But we're already like have the ick, right? So then this article is dropped and it's just fueled this gender war. Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So what do you have to say about that? Like, I want to know. Let's dig into this. And
it's really, I guess, where do you want to go? Because,
everywhere.
all right. I mean, I completely agree with you on this. It's a perfect example of I wish we had a better, don't like wishing, but a better name, the powers that be, the control
How about
apparatus,
the parasites?
the parasites. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. How they want to fuel division, and how more and more, so maybe we'll go here first. More and more the average human, let's say, and I don't know if we need to specifically talk about people in the United States. Obviously, we're more familiar with Americans, but I think it spans a lot of the globe. I would assume maybe, but how we are more and more by design losing our ability to actually think critically, and just so when you see something like this, so many people just see that, and it reinforces thoughts that have potentially not been their own from the beginning, because it's just been force fed. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to think. Now I see this confirmation, and I'm not going to dig into it. I'm not going to think critically about it. Like, does that make sense? 62 million married men are learning how to rape their wives.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it makes sense, because it confirms my belief.
Well, and it triggers their wound.
Right.
That's ultimately what it is.
Mhm.
Like, men and women both have wounds with the opposite sex. They just do. And it triggers or reinforces, like you said, that root cause of that wound.
Mm-hmm. So the critical thinking aspect of it, before we get into more of the masculine and feminine stuff, that's concerning to me, because it, like we were talking before we started recording, it's such a blatant intended consequence of the social control that the parasites have had on us for a long time. And one way that you really see it is in education. And, I'm not talking about indoctrination and all the other, pitfalls that we see in the public school system right now. That's a whole different conversation. Really, what I'm talking about is just the ability to critically think. And the example that comes to my head, that so many people, I'm sure, listening to this can relate to, is, why the hell am I learning algebra, in high school? When am I ever going to use this? And you see that a lot. I wish I would have been taught taxes and whatever, the stuff that we were, more like the stuff that we were taught.
Yeah.
How to bake a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
How to,
So
how to stick two pieces of wood together, which is great. But I think people fail to realize, and it's just being more and more reinforced now, the purpose of something like algebra in high school, or what college could be, is not to learn how to figure out what x plus y is. It's to be presented with a scenario that you don't inherently have an answer to. And how do you figure out that answer? What's your process? What does your brain have to do, to get from A to B, to figure out, how do I solve this thing that's beyond my current scope of knowledge? And more and more and more, the answer that's pushed by the parasites to the masses is, you don't have to. We figured it out for you. You don't have to think about this. Google it.
Yeah.
Ask ChatGPT. You don't need to reason through this scenario. Another example was English, like breaking down the parts of a sentence. Nobody, unless you teach English, no one does that in real life. But nobody inherently knows the parts of a sentence either. So you have to figure it out. And you have to critically look at a sentence and think, oh, what is the verb? What are they actually talking about? And it might not be what you initially think when you read it. But when you process through it, then you can figure it out. That same ability applies across the board. So now, when we're presented with information, so many people just, they haven't developed that muscle to be able to look at something and be like, let me work through this.
Sure.
Does this make sense? And sometimes it does. Sometimes you work through it and it's like, oh yeah, that is right. That's wacky. But not even having the ability to work through it, now it just defaults to, no, the smart person said it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to think. So I just go with that and run with that.
That, and coupled with poking your trauma.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? So you have the lack of being able to think critically because everything is at our fingertips. And then that on top of poking the masculine trauma, poking the feminine trauma. And then you just get this barrage of stuff. And then when you hear those content creators who have massive followings and so forth, berate the man and then berate the woman for just being a feminist, whatever, then it just reinforces it. That on top of your inability to do some just basic research, guys. Like, how long did it take me to find this information this morning? Like 10 minutes?
Maybe. Yeah.
Like just pulling up one layer. And here's what I'm not trying to minimize: the feminine trauma and the masculine. Because I think femininity has, in the past, I think it's emerging to be more divine. It's really done terrible things for women. Like, women want men, generally, I say there's a lot of nuance to this in terms of like massive feminine women. Want men to behave like women, but then also want them to behave like men. It's kind of like a control apparatus. But it's the same thing with men. How men want women to, and not the same way. Okay. This is where we're going to
diverge.
This is where we're going to fight. But men generally, if I'm doing just a general thing, want women to just shut up and be less emotional. I mean, that if my wife would just shut up and quit nagging and blah, blah, blah. And so we have an issue. We have a heart issue within men and women that, here we go, need to be healed. But I believe that this is huge because I believe it's generational.
I agree with the generational thing. I also think that's being exacerbated by society.
Oh, for sure.
And so, like you said, it's like poking the bear.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. You're poking at the potential traumas, but it's also being, because this isn't something that started 3 years ago or 5 years ago. This is going back like first wave feminism.
No,
stuff.
this is going back at the dawn of time. Because right now what we have is women so sick of the patriarchy that they're just like, so
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
The societal poking of it, 500 years ago, it wasn't the same as it's been in the last 60 years.
Right.
So I'm saying the last 60, 70 years has been more of the exaggeration or more of the emphasis on it versus how it used to be. I'm not saying that there hasn't been masculine, feminine since the dawn of time.
Right.
I'm saying the focus on what's wrong with it is a relatively new thing, I think.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah, I think that we've been strategically played against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like, in terms of the feminist movement, women went so masculine, which is not healthy for them. And now they're moving slowly back into more of their, and I'm talking about divine femininity and divine masculinity, which is completely different than what the parasites want to tell you is masculine and feminine. And so I just think that right now we're reaping what has been sown for generations. And it's important that you have eyes to see and ears to hear if you're going to be part of the healing of these, of the masculine and the feminine. Everyone has to do their part. And it's hard because I know for me, it's hard to not be enraged at men for so many different reasons right now. Just the way the world has been run by men, and now it's just being run into the ground because women have been silenced and told they can't be in positions of power, or that's not what the Bible says, women are to submit. All of these things are big things to women. And so what we have then is men minimizing those emotions, but they have to come out. And it's messy at first. This is why I think when you're doing your healing work, you just keep to yourself because the emotions have to move through you and you have to have the capacity to go deep within and say, why am I feeling this?
Hey friends, if you're getting something out of this, connect with us on our social media platforms. We're at CJ Elevated Life _ on Instagram and TikTok, and CJ Elevated Life on Facebook and X. We're answering DMs, sharing daily content, and building community with people ready for real transformation. For now, hit subscribe wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We drop 2 new episodes every week. And if this episode resonates, share it. That's how we reach more people who are ready for change. You can also find everything at cjelevatedlife.com. All right, let's keep going. I want to push back a little bit on something you said.
Okay.
And it's kind of a thought experiment. Neither of us are historians.
No.
Or how about we weren't there 200 years ago or 5,000 years ago or whatever. But you said that the world's being run into the ground right now, right? Do you think it's fair to say that generally speaking in society, global society, national society, whatever it might be, there are more women in charge of things, companies, organizations, whatever, governmental agencies than there have been in the past?
I don't know. I can't say that for certain.
Anecdotally, do you feel like you hear from more women in charge of like mayors or governors or
Sure.
CEOs
Yeah.
or anything? And that's been a very recent phenomenon. There's obviously been, I guess just as a quick aside, we're really trying to not have anecdotal evidence disprove generalities.
Yeah.
Clearly we're talking about, and you kind of already mentioned this, clearly we're talking about generalities. There are, of course, exceptions, whatever. But generally speaking, that's been in the last 50 years, 60 years. And there's been what you just said, the world's being run into the ground now. Right. Do you think the world was being run into the ground 300 years ago? Probably. So then there's been no difference with women getting more power, let's say, more authority. There hasn't been a difference. Do you think most people would say things are better or worse now than they were 50 years ago?
Because I didn't live then, but I would say probably worse. And I'm curious about the point that you're about to make, because there's a difference between wounded masculine and wounded feminine being in charge, as opposed to divine masculine and divine feminine being in charge. What we see currently is wounded. That's the 3D world. So as we're building something better, as wounded collapses and a more balanced, healed world comes out of this, because that's what I see, things are going to look a lot different.
So you just made my point for me, because it seems like the solution now is not to put, just again, the solution that most people live in, the solution that you're going to see on social media, on, whatever, the news or wherever you're getting your information. The solution is blindly saying men bad, women good. Women are in charge. Everything is amazing.
Right.
Except that's not the facts.
Right.
Because I would argue a wounded feminine is more dangerous than a wounded masculine.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting, considering the patriarchy has been in charge for the vast majority of history. And I don't think the wounded feminine has been in charge long enough to prove the running into the ground.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just saying it as a thought.
Yeah.
I don't have any concrete evidence, but I guess it depends on what you consider dangerous, what you consider a downfall, how you're grading society, I guess. Because when you live in a place from traumatized, misplaced emotion versus traumatized, misplaced logic, which I think is a very simplified, generalized version of masculine and feminine, it becomes much more irrational with the wounded emotion. Do you agree or no?
Fuck no, I don't agree. I think both are toxic. I know, but when you start going, oh, this is worse than this, like, it's okay that wounded males have been running this country and going to war, and
I did not say any of that.
Okay, well, because I don't feel like one is worse than the other.
Right, but one is not better than the other either. If they're both negative, if they're both bad, they're both bad. It doesn't mean when I say one thing isn't good, that doesn't mean I'm saying the other thing is good. I'm not saying wounded masculine is good.
Well,
I'm not saying it's beneficial.
Said that it's more logical. It's not as combustible.
Correct. It isn't. There's certainly downsides. There's downsides to both.
Proven.
but more combustible. An emotional person is more combustible than a logical person. Right? Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I think that emotional would be something that is combustible on the outside, so you could judge it more harshly than a logic that is like more strategic in the defiance and the um uh bad behavior, because it presents logical on the outside. I think both end in, explosion, but because a woman is more and a man is more, I'm just going to be quiet, it all results in the same shitstorm. Just one is more methodical and one is more outward showing.
Yeah, and more chaotic. One's more methodical, one's more chaotic.
On the outside. But on the inside, it's the same wound. It's the same path.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing that, and I didn't say it wasn't. I'm not advocating for wounded masculinity to rule the world. I'm just saying what's being elevated now is wounded femininity.
Yes.
To the detriment.
In the 3D world.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
I also think that there's a whole group of people that are moving to a different world, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, I don't know that I shouldn't say there's not value in talking about that, but those things take care of themselves when you get into a group of people who at least somewhat can live in their divine masculinity, divine femininity. Then a lot of those issues go away, because just by nature, how they deal with each other, how they interact, how they live their own lives, it's inherently going to be more beneficial.
Right.
So if we're talking about what's really going on right now in society in general, that's not that group of people. There is that group of people, but they're still very much on the outside. Probably not even looking in, outside looking away.
I call it the touchdown. I have to touch down into the 3D world for a moment, and then it's like, no, can't do that. But I want to hold space for both, because I currently live in both. So this is what I would tell the people. If talking about this triggers your masculinity or triggers your femininity to hate on the other sex, I really want you to go inward and figure out why that is. Social conditioning, things that have happened to you, stories that you have been told, whatever that is. Because in order for you to come out the other side and not continue to spew the hate, it was very disheartening to me that some of the people that I follow that claim divine femininity and divine masculine jumped all over this without even, doing the research, just fed into the hate and the division, that the parasites are really good at playing you against each other. Not all men are assholes. There's a large group of men that are really trying to step into being and understanding what it is to be a divine masculine male. It is not completely natural because of social conditioning and the way that they were raised. Same is true for the divine feminine. It is social conditioning. It is how they were raised. And all of those emotions have to be processed. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of people processing those emotions in a positive way, but also in a negative way, because a lot of the comments with the threads that I was reading were, dudes are just, they fucking suck and I'm over it. And then on the flip side was, this is just hysterical women being hysterical again. And that is part of the problem. That's the problem right there. So if you don't have the wherewithal to dig deep into yourself and figure out where the genesis of this wound is, and I would think that this would take some really big soul searching, because again, generational trauma, you're going to be part of the problem. That's just where it's at. But negating, like, women shouldn't feel this way or men shouldn't feel this way, is ridiculous. All emotions need to be brought to the table and dealt with in a manner that isn't hurtful to other people.
Let's do a little thought experiment.
Oh, I love this. Let me get my stapler ready. I think it has like a 6-foot range.
Because, and maybe this won't turn out. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it right now. So, we like to talk both about what Jonna was just talking about, which is spectacular. Totally agree with. But also some other practical tools, I guess, for as you're trying to figure out, what the fuck is this divine masculine, divine feminine? How do I live that out? Just in my day to day, if you're not already there, what do I do? How do I handle certain situations? So with the 62 million, because I could see this as a typical conversation. A woman sees that on, and hears it from, just like what happened with you, people I trust are saying this.
Yeah.
And
just say something. I don't want to cut you off, but this was from a CNN article,
right?
Which, I want to say this really quick, was shocking to me that the community that I'm involved in is like, all news is fake news. They use it to totally turn people against you. And then all of a sudden they're talking about a CNN report that is 100% valid. We know that the news on either side, I don't care if it's MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, it is all skewed to cause division and turmoil within the population so that they don't turn their eyes on who's really screwing them, which is the parasites. I'm sorry, that needed to be said. So go ahead.
So we've just got two average people that, are trying, but this is the conversation, something like this. The woman sees that, like, holy shit, and the man and the woman are having a conversation. The woman sees that. Can you believe this? 62 million men. I think an average typical guy is gonna be like, that doesn't make any sense. That number doesn't make sense. That's an astronomical number. They would do kind of like what I did. Like, okay, let's break this down and let's see. So then what a typical woman might feel, and obviously step in, correct me if I'm wrong here, be, oh, you just invalidate everything I say. You're mansplaining this article that I saw on CNN that, you're completely invalidating me, and would potentially get upset. So then the guy is like, here we fucking go again. You're just going to get all emotional. You can't even think logically. Now you're just running on emotion, and, you're going to go off on some tangent and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm tuning out, right? I think that's a relatively, right?
I just did a really good job of explaining wounded feminine and wounded masculine.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a perfect example of what that looks like. So, honestly, because yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Because all that did was stir up the trauma in the woman of, I'm crazy, I'm invalidated, I'm whatever. And then stirred up the trauma in the man, which is women are irrational. They're just emotional, crazy people. Women were created emotional. Men were created logical. We need to learn how to fucking come together.
and be able to communicate that way. And it
Mhm.
takes both people. When we've said this so many times, like a divine feminine is going to really struggle existing with a hurt
Oh,
masculine,
it,
and vice versa,
yeah,
obviously.
totally.
Because you, on the one side, you're like, no, let me try to understand this, look internally, have this conversation, because there's value in the conversation. A huge part of divine feminine, divine masculine is being able to understand the other side of it.
Right. Being able to hold space for both.
Yeah.
For your femininity and for his masculinity,
Mhm.
or whatever
Right.
that
Yeah.
partnership is.
So the tool then is, how does that conversation go if you're trying to build that muscle of, no, I want to live in more of my divine feminine, my divine masculine?
Well, let me tell you how it went for us. And I'm going to be super honest. So when I mentioned this to Clint, was it yesterday?
Yesterday, a couple days ago, recently. Yeah.
That's what Clint said. That doesn't seem logical. And I thought, right? I had that. But anytime I have that with anything, I know that it's something within me that is not healed, because I definitely have a masculine wound. Like, I could be a radical feminist, unhealed, if I was not healing. No one's arrived. Okay. We have never said that we have arrived. You don't arrive until you go to the next level.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's not even go there.
Mhm.
But I thought, so then I sat with that. Right. And I went back and forth in my mind, because I can hold space for both places.
Just real quick, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but from my perspective on that part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
I said that, like, that's a crazy number. That doesn't make any sense. But then it wasn't followed up with, why didn't you figure that out? How can you even believe that article?
No.
So that would be potentially that wounded masculine, like digging in
Yeah.
and going back for
That's
round
just a
2 and
bunch of
round 3.
bitches
Like,
that-
yep, women hate men. Here's
Yeah.
another, it was just like, that's fucking wild. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then
So that's the logical man brain,
Mhm.
right? Because also, something you need to know about Clint is that he's very mathematical. So I'm sure, and I don't want to speak for you, but because I know you, your brain was doing some mathy stuff,
Mhm.
right? I don't have that kind of a brain. So anyway, I just sat with that and worked through those emotions, taking that information from him, going, and it takes me way longer to math than Clint, going, well, gosh, that does seem like a lot of fucking people, like a whole bunch.
Mhm.
And so then I was like, and we talked about it later in the day, I need to do some research, right? So I was able to work through that whole punch of, motherfucker, fucking dudes. It's like, I just want to punch all of you. To, why do you feel that way, Jonna? Because you still haven't completely healed your masculine wounds. And so now we need to realize that the masculine has something to offer, which is a logical brain. Men, women don't have that.
Mhm.
They don't. I mean, they have a portion of it, because we all have a little bit of divine feminine and masculine within us, right? But then I was able to leech onto that information and go, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do my own research and not just spout off about how line up all the people with penises, cut them off, and watch them burn, right? Like, anyway, so then it was like, oh, actually, it's not 62 million men. It's an entire porn site that got 62 million hits in a month. This group specifically had 1,000 members. Are these 1,000 people just gross and trash? Not that I'm trying to judge. I would say a less evolved soul.
There you go.
Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But it's not 62 million men. And that angers me, because then it gives the women who have some feminine rage, or, because anytime you mention anything feminist, that just gets tossed out with like, I'm a woman, hear me roar, right? And you're just like a wackadoo.
Yeah.
Because everything is black and white. There's extremes now. No one lives in like nuance.
Hey, quick pause. If this episode is hitting you and you're ready for real tools, here's what we built.
Head on over to cjellevatedlife.com, pick up the Rebuilt Method for Men or the Rebuilt Method for Women, just $67 each. We also created the Parasite Detox Blueprint at $37. And this is actually the exact protocol we use ourselves.
And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the weekly action steps and new tools we've tested ourselves. Let's get back to the episode.
And so anyway, it made me angry for the picture that's being painted for men. Like, this is why men don't want to open up doors for women anymore. This is why men don't want to even talk to women anymore, because they don't know if they're just going to be, berated or don't open the fucking door for me. I can do this myself. Like, men don't know how to be men anymore. And women, we need to own up to the fact that we've taught them that. We can't expect them to be gentlemen and then berate them when they are gentlemen. That's how we're feeding into this.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you want to talk about our divine or our feminine and masculine wounds coming out anytime we talk about this, it's just like both exposed nerves trying to, it is a muscle that we have to like work on, because we're trying to live in this divinity, right? And it really exposes the wounds. And it's so good. Like, we talk about that all the time. You want to expose the wounds. But sometimes
a couple things real quick before we get too far away from it. Just to put a bow on that conversation, because I think you did a fantastic job of talking about what the divine feminine can do. If you're looking to live in that, you follow exactly the path that you did. Deal with it with that initial thing, because you don't want to just push it away.
No.
Right? No matter men or women, anybody, when you have that, but then process through it in whatever way you need to process through it. So just to give those same kind of tools for the masculine side. Yeah. In that particular situation, I think the biggest thing for you to resist, if you're really trying to go from, I keep saying the wounded masculine, and I think that's a great way to put it, the wounded masculine to the divine masculine. And what I did is I didn't try to fix what I perceived as Jonna's error. Like, I felt like that information was incorrect, because of whatever. But I didn't harp on it. I didn't like try to show her the evidence of, no, this is where you're wrong. Let me correct you. Right? Which is a huge thing that men do.
Yeah.
And it's one of it is a major detriment in going from the wounded masculine to the divine masculine, is succumbing to that impulse of, no, you're wrong, I need to fix you. And that could be if
prove that I'm right.
Right. Yeah. It all fits in, whether it's, I read this article thing, or I had this experience with my girlfriends, whatever, and I'm really upset about it. And then the guy's just like, well, fuck, here's what you do. Here's how you fix it. Yeah. Then nope, you just dove headfirst into the wounds and the trauma of wounded masculine, wounded feminine, and nothing good is coming of that. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's definitely, if you're looking to move into that more of a divine masculine thought process, those things will still come up, because the thought still came to my head, Like, no, we could figure this out right now because it's very obvious in my mind. That's what I'm thinking. But then that was my initial, like, not gut punch, but my initial thing, like you felt, that was mine. And I had to sit with that and process it and think, nope, I'm not going to say any of this right now because because of the way we interact and the way we think, it will be something that gets processed through, or it's going to be something that just gets, I mean, this was a major one. But if we're talking about just like general day-to-day stuff, oftentimes those conversations just go away. There was nothing that needed to be discussed more than, excuse me, in this moment. And we can dig in and I can be an asshole about it and live in my wounded masculinity and make it 1,000 times worse. Or we can just let it play out. And I think what we find is really in essentially every situation, those things work themselves out.
And it's not always perfect. I don't want to,
Sure.
come on here and be like,
Yeah.
oh no, we just are constantly walking around in our divine feminine and masculine. No, because had Clint enabled my toxic femininity and said, oh my gosh, that is just horrible, blah, 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 I would have never had the opportunity to feel that trauma hit and go, work through the emotions, go, where is this coming from? Dig down into the depths of Jonna's soul, which I fucking hate going there, especially in the masculine wound. Like, it's just because it's bleeding. It's still bleeding. And I would say that that is the truth for most of the population. But my goal in the last few months, I got some new terminology. My goal as a human right now is to see people as souls, not to see them as what their meat suit presents. And that is happening very slowly, but it is the most astonishing thing, is to see souls instead of meat suits. And so had Clint enabled my wounded feminine, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to dig deep into that wound and go, okay, what is this from? And why do I kind of want to punch him in the face right now? Right? But then not acting on it, because you have to be able to observe your thoughts, right? Observe your thoughts. Like, this isn't right. This isn't the direction that I'm heading. I'm going to OODA loop here and just get on this I don't like men tangent. And how does that benefit anything? How is that helping the population? How is that helping myself, first of all? And then, your vibe. How is that? Because your vibe radiates throughout the planet. What is that doing to my frequency? It's lowering it. I have no interest in that. So thank you for, I hate that I even have to say this. Thanks for responding like that. Oh, I just want to poke you in the eye right now.
That's why we sit 8 feet apart.
Exactly. So anyway, those are some ways, right? And also I would say, women, if you just are starting to want to lean into this, allow men to be men. Where they're at currently, even if it's toxic, has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. And it would be the same with the man.
I was absolutely going to echo exactly what you said.
You're not going to change them. You can only change yourself. No amount of spewing off about how men are fucking assholes is going to change a man. And men, no amount of women are emotional and crazy is ever going to do anything for you, ever. Like, that is the best way to die alone.
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing it does is make the problem worse.
Yeah. Which, there are studies coming out that women live longer when they're not with a man. Oh, and I think about that all the time, because sometimes I'm just like, and I love you, Glenn, but sometimes I'm like, dudes. But that's just, that's my wounded feminine speaking. Yeah.
The one thing, I know we're getting close on time here.
Are you timing us?
The one thing, no, I mean, we could go
Yeah, you
forever
are.
on this one. I'm sure we're going to keep talking about it when we stop recording. But um, the the one thing, and we say this a lot, but I think it bears repeating all the time, that's so critical for you to understand. Again, if you're listening to this, you're probably somewhere on that. You're wanting to get to something else.
Don't have a fucking clue what we're talking about, and it's time to do your own research.
Yeah, but it's so important to remember those thoughts, those feelings, the thoughts that I had, the feelings that Jonna had in that initial conversation. Those are always going to be there. You're not looking for a place where I no longer have I shouldn't say you're not looking. The reality of right now, pretty much, again, like you said, until you're completely off, you're going to be in some version of, I still have those thoughts. I still have those feelings. I've done all this work. I'm living in this. Those feelings are still going to come. Those thoughts are still going to come. It's what you do with them. That's the biggest takeaway, is what you do with them, because what we did with them is it enabled a fantastic conversation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Just like, anyway, it's pretty much, I guess, the end. That's how we're ending today. The end. I just want to reiterate, I'm not trying to make light of this situation or the 1,000 men that were involved in learning how to drug and rape their partners. That's vile. But, 1,000 is way different than 6,200, which million, which, these sites, that's who went to the porn sites. Apparently we have a bigger issue. Wow. And all
that's
of
a whole different podcast.
It is. And I'm going to tell you right now, tell me you're a wounded masculine or a wounded feminine without telling me if you're involved in this stuff. Yeah, and here's something else really quick, dudes. I want you to research, because I just dipped my toe in this. In my opinion, and mind you, this might change, right? As I learn and grow in this understanding, your core wound with your masculine has to do with your circumcision and your mother okaying that. That's your mind just exploding. Like, who said it was okay to cut part of your masculinity off? Who started that? You really think that God, who said he made you perfect at the genesis of time, then said, oh, I fucked up. Now we got to cut off part of your dick. Yeah. Okay, so that's what I'm leaving y'all with. I want you to do your own research, because I am not your gatekeeper, right? Like, you do your own thing. But
on that happy note,
yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful. And if you got triggered in this episode, I want you to sit with that and dig into yourself, right? It's taken me time to get to the point where I would thank Clint for answering the way that he did. There was a time in my past that I would have been like, get out. I'm all done. Like, I'm not even listening to you. Men are dumb. It's true. And I want to be honest. I'm not like sitting over here in this divine femininity, just radiating Mary Magdalene. You know?
Well, and I would say just likewise, there was a time in my past where I would have gone 6 rounds with you and been like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you think that. Just think about it for 1 second. What can you even process information?
Yeah, like you're a dumb broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just believe every stupid thing you see on social media.
Yeah. And if we can just identify it as we are two souls
Mhm.
in a meat suit dealing with our wounded masculinity
Yeah.
and femininity,
Yep.
like that's what it boils down to. So anyway, again, I hope this was helpful. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the bathrobe, no makeup
Yeah.
attire.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, I don't fucking care.
All right. We'll talk to you later.